Hey, welcome back to the Midnight Blue and Gold Launchpad podcast. I'm your host tonight, Kyle W., brought to you by the boys right here. I'll let them introduce themselves here.
I am PJ Spiller, aka Pat Gillick.
I'm Dan Rocket Man Savage.
And I'm Nate, the Texas Rocket.
So it's been a little while. We wanted to do a strictly basketball episode here. I think it's been, like 6 games since we've really covered basketball, so a lot to go over here. We're going to give the cliff notes, I'm sure, but, just get everybody up to speed on where we're at right now. But first off, just wanted to give a huge thanks to our reoccurring listeners. People have probably been with us since the beginning, maybe, but also the new followers that we've had, and some of the new downloads that we're seeing. We really appreciate everybody tuning in. If you haven't subscribed, give us a follow on Facebook or X, whatever social media you prefer, and we're on YouTube and all the podcast platforms. So wherever you listen or watch the podcast, we're there. So, definitely give us a follow. We like to see where our numbers are at and see how this thing's going. But yeah, like I said, today is going to be a basketball episode. You know, I think we're going to start off with men's basketball first, and probably throw to Dan here.
Yeah, it's been a little oasis. We've had vacations and a lot of stuff going on, so glad to be back talking ball again. We'll be back. We got some football news that we got to talk about here soon too. We got a nice recruiting class that just came in, so excited about that. But that'll be for another day. Lately around the MAC, it's been chaotic unless you're a Miami Redhawks fan, who you're still sitting undefeated, ranked nationally. We don't get that too often around here, right, guys?
I mean,
Exactly.
honestly, for the conference, kind of rooting for them, see what seed they could get if they finish undefeated. That's pretty crazy.
Absolutely. It's just cool to not have to search MAC when you're looking for their score. It just pops up on the top 25.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
but
There's a
it,
lot,
it does suck because,
unfortunately, I was going to say, unfortunately, there's a lot of chatter out there. People getting on Miami for their strength of schedule.
yeah,
It's 338 or 365 or whatever it is. And then, you know what? I don't care if you're playing any kind of organized basketball team. If you're undefeated, that's something special.
1,000%. And those guys can win close games, something that I wish Toledo could do. So it's not easy to win on the road anywhere in the country. But it is kind of weird to see people saying if they lose one game, they're off the bubble. Like you can't lose one. like
It,
what ridiculous.
if it gets all the way, usually the MAC is a one team and in, but if it gets all the way down, they're undefeated until the MAC championship, and somebody upsets them in the championship. Are they out? I don't think there's any way, right?
I don't think so. I think
Not
they can
the-
afford an extra loss. Yeah, but who knows? You know what, if you are say a 6 seed or a 7 seed and Miami's an 11 or a 10, you're gonna be pissed.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
like that's gonna be a team that you're taking to the Sweet 16, filling out your bracket. Because I don't care who you played, you don't want to play the number one 3-point shooting and number one field goal percent team in the country, which is Miami. And there'll be a big line discrepancy too when they're ranked 18th in the country and they're a double digit seed or an 8 or a 9. I think they deserve higher than that.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
But since we've talked last, Toledo lost on the road to UMass by 2. Defeated BG last minute comeback at Savage, which was great. We lost at Akron by 10. Akron's a pretty good team. We drilled Ball State for the Life Connection game. That was fun. Nice little doubleheader there with the ladies game against BG last weekend. And Tuesday, we blew a 17-point lead against Kent State at home. That one stung. And then we lost our Sunbelt Challenge Part 2 against JMU. So Sunbelt swept us this year. But you guys have any thoughts about any of those games that happened in the past few weeks?
I watched the JMU game recently, and the first half I was really impressed. Defense looked good overall. JMU looked a little flustered at times, and then right after halftime, they really let it slip, and it was just comeback the whole game. And we can argue that last play on Blyden should have been a foul, which it probably should have. But If they would have played the first half like they did this, or the second half like they did the first half, I don't think we're having that conversation.
Yeah, that game was the only game I did not get eyes on for the men in this whole stretch. But the discourse on the message board, there was about 4 or 5 calls apparently in the last couple minutes
Yeah.
that were very bad. I guess Sonny came down with a rebound in bounds that they called out of bounds, and a lot of stuff that I guess isn't even like reviewable. But
Yeah.
apparently there
The
was maybe 10 points in swings that really affected the last couple minutes of that game.
the one thing that really pissed me off with the announcers, and I really try not to do it because obviously they're Homer announcers, and they were solid overall, quality. But them, so in the first half, there was I thought should have been a charge on Parks, and they didn't call it, and the announcers were saying, "Oh, it's a good no call," blah blah blah. I thought he was squared up, and he should have got that. In the second half, on Blyden, I believe, he got a charge call on the baseline, which I thought was complete horseshit, and the announcers didn't say a thing about that, and both were driving plays into the basket.
Yeah, with Parks trying to take a charge, the big guys never get the benefit of that doubt. He took one against, I believe it was Kent. And Kent has a real big bowling ball of a dude that gave him 1, 2, and the third. Parks actually flew back. So big
I
guys
didn't
tend
think
not to get that call, but I don't know. I really have to go watch that game. Uh, at the end of the day, though, the sentiment kind of remains the same. That was our sixth 2 or 3 point or sixth one possession loss of the year. And JMU is not as good as they have been in the last couple of years. We should have won that game, but it just
Announcers
goes
did
back.
mention that, which I thought was interesting because they were talking about how Toledo is kind of a sneaky team overall, and they didn't. Before the JMU loss, they said something like 11 or 13 points decided that maybe would have a 3 or 4 win swing for Toledo overall.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to like Kowalczyk. This team specifically, this Toledo team, like we're playing a non-conference game that's hard to get to in the middle of the conference schedule. I'm not sure how much we actually cared about this game, and it's coming before this week. We have 2 more road games, so I'm not sure how dialed in we were, but um, you know, we always have excuses. Kowalczyk always has excuses. Um, this week was not the only. That was not the only time this week that we had excuses. After the Kent game, Kowalczyk was talking about the handshake line and Kent State being disrespectful. Um, it always seems like offense is the reason that things aren't going well. But man, well, I'll get to it a little bit. Our offense has been pretty damn good this year.
I agree.
and the
I
defense
didn't.
is Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, I.
Mostly Hyde.
Well,
Yeah,
the
there's.
interesting thing is as you're going over these 6 games and kind of looking back with what happened, it's hard to remember everything. But the UMass game was typical old school Kowalczyk, where really only 6 players played total. But as you went along here, he got more into the bench as we came up to JMU, which I thought was interesting.
No, that UMass game I posted on social media. There was a bunch of really bad calls in that game too that swung the game. Um, but as I've seen kind of everybody play, UMass and Miami are the only 2 teams in the league that I think are more talented than us. Now, I think UMass has played below their potential for sure. Obviously, Miami has played peak potential all season, but this Toledo team is very good. I mean, we have the best 2 guards in the league as a combo, I would say. And as the last couple of weeks have gone by, Kowalczyk's dipping into his bench and getting good minutes from, Owinga and Strong has really helped it, made me get excited. But right when I get excited, we blow a 17-point lead to Kent and then lose to JMU. So, man, it's just a frustrating watch.
Yeah, and it's really hard to pick out one player that really stood out. I think multiple players had good games. Like BG, there's 5 players that had double-digit points. Uh, I mean, it's easy to say Sonny just because he's always Mr. Consistent. If he's not scoring buckets, he's making sure others are. But huge shout out to Blyden. He had a great stretch. I thought Owinga had a great stretch for the minutes that he played. And when they actually give Austin Parks the ball down low, he does some magic. So I think he has some nice post moves that maybe they should take advantage of a little more.
Yeah, I mean, he's leading the team in field goal percentages at 61%. You know, being that close and that tall, he shouldn't be missing many.
Yeah. I agree with all those sentiments, and I just want to give a shout out to one fellow co-host that special guest at one time, Kevin Wall. If you are listening, I watched the Bowling Green game with him, courtside there, and I was glad I got to watch with a fellow second cousin because that was the first men's game I'd been to in person this year, and that was a hell of a game. What a crowd! What a final minute sequence. Finally we got a little bit lucky when it seems like luck has been on the other side of the court all season. Fuck BG, that was a great win. Yeah, it's going to be tough coming up this week when we have to go there for Valentine's Day. But man, at least the men and women combined are 1-0 against BG this year.
Gotta like it. Gotta love it.
Anything more that I don't really want to dig on this team too much because we didn't have that high of expectation. We knew we had to replace a lot. And as far as recruiting goes, I think Minor Strong is a hell of a freshman so far. He's come on lately. Leroy Blyden, man, he's the best freshman we've seen since maybe Juice Brown.
Right.
The guy's been a stud. It's going to be interesting to see if we can even keep him in a Rockets uniform after this offseason. He's been so good.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit before the show, and somebody's going to back up a Brinks truck for that kid if we're not careful.
Doesn't matter if we're careful or not. He's balling.
Right, but maybe he went to high school with Sonny. They played on, I think, 1 year they played together in high school. But maybe he looks up to him as a mentor. Maybe Sonny can talk something about loyalty with him. Who knows? But in this day and age, cash talks.
Sure. Hey, before we move on to the women's here, I did want to give a big shout out to Max and Hook. Seahawks won the Super Bowl and saw a picture of him with the Super Bowl trophy. Really cool to see another Toledo player holding up a trophy. And, I'm sure there'll be many more.
Yeah, what did you guys think about that game? As we're interrupting basketball, but that was not a great for me.
Do you want me to be
Super
honest?
Bowl went. Yeah,
I canceled my cable on January 30th, expecting not to watch this game. I saw the matchup and I was like, I'm not paying for this. And I watched on Game Tracker, and at halftime it was 9-0 with 3 field goals and all punts, and I was like, I made the right move. Good Lord.
Yeah, it was a very tough watch. It was frustrating. I almost turned it off in the end of the third. And I was just not even paying attention in the fourth because it was the same thing over and over. It was definitely proof that defense wins championships because Seattle's defense was on fire.
good point. I know Vegas raked. There were a lot of the touchdown props. None of those things hit. I guess Seattle covered, which was good for the public. But I had one bet that I thought I could possibly sneak in there, and I bet on a scoreagami to be the final score, which means a score that's never happened before. But I thought the bet was a scoreagami 4 Super Bowls. So there had only been 58 prior Super Bowls. I assumed that it just had to be not one of the 58 scores that have ever happened. Well, it was just scoreagamis in general. And but Seattle was sitting on 19 with 5 minutes left, and then they scored 3 more touchdowns. So I actually had a couple chances where they were right there, but oh well, I lost my $1 bet on the Super Bowl. Oh well, I can't complain.
That's scoreagami.
Yeah. Here are some stats I think that are important when looking at kind of how this men's team is 12-12 overall. These are just conference stats though, but we are 3rd in scoring margin in the league at plus 2.3, which is, I'm surprised we're not lower because our defense is giving up 74 points a game. But Akron is plus 12.3 and Miami's plus 11.2. So that shows you how far away we are from number 1 and number 2 in the league. We are fourth in 3-point percentage at 36.1, which is pretty dang good. And actually, Blyden is 40%, and Sonny is over 36% from three. And he's not meant, I mean, he hasn't been a 3-point shooter at all, really, in his tenure here at Toledo. And he's been putting up a pretty good percentage this year. So shout out to Sonny. Um, Toledo is near the bottom of the league in 3-point percentage against at 10th in the MAC. It does seem like every team hits their 3-pointers against us. Kind of goes hand in hand with defense.
Yeah.
We are third in the MAC in free throw percentage at 77%, which that's cool. And we are actually number one in the MAC in worst free throw percentage against. So we're getting a little bit lucky when teams are at the line against us, not shooting very well from the line. So maybe I just say play hack-a-mole against some of these teams and force them to make shots, because we do give up quite a few open buckets in the paint. We are 11th in rebounding margin at minus 2.8. That has led to some losses, especially against the physical teams in the MAC like Akron and Kent. Kowalczyk doesn't really preach boxing out. He preaches, going and getting the ball instead. And I think our guards do a really good job of that. I think Blyden is a phenomenal rebounder for his size. And Craig is in the top 5 in the league in rebounding. But sometimes it's like we're not boxing out, and other teams are sneaking around us. We're in bad positions. And honestly, if you ask me, that's why Kyler Vanderjack has lost a ton of minutes in the last couple weeks. He went from starting to being replaced by Minor Strong, and Kyler's not shooting it well, but defensively, he's been a step slow, and he has not been crashing the boards. So I don't know the actual statistics as far as plus minus when other guys are on the floor, but I imagine Kyler Vanderjack's in the minus department, and that's why he's lost his minutes. We are fourth in the league in steals. That goes to our guards. Very quick hands this year. Even though we don't play the greatest defense, we are, we're anticipatory when it comes to other teams passing the ball. And we're seventh in assists, which is, I think in crunch time this year, there's been many times where we have gone isolation, one-on-one ball. And really the only time I can remember we didn't do that was when we gave it to Blyden quick off the screen against Bowling Green and hit that three-pointer. Instead, it's kind of just Sonny, clear out, and Sonny goes one-on-one and throws up some garbage, and we have to hope it goes in. So I'd like to see some more assists from this team. I think that'll, matter down the stretch when we close in on Cleveland. You guys already mentioned Parks is, in the tops in the league in field goal percentage, over 60%. That's terrific. And we are second in attendance, which is in MAC play. We're averaging 4,800 a game, but Miami started filling out Millette Hall. They're averaging over 5,400, and they've had 2 or 3 sellouts in a row. So,
people are in the library.
Yeah, the live. This is the last year at Millette Hall, or maybe next year is the last year at Millette Hall too. They're building a new one.
Oh.
So good for Miami for at least showing up. There's not a lot of tough road environments in this league. You'd think Akron and Kent could put a few thousand in a game, but they don't. But again, shout out to us, even for a relatively, mediocre for our standard squad, still bringing out 4,800 for MAC play. That's huge.
Yeah, I mean, the town does support the university well. But when you look at the overall package they're putting on the floor, like you said, it's an average team by our standards, but I think there's a lot of people that are invested in all of the athletic programs that come out. We're usually leading the attendance in the Big Three.
Yeah.
Or up there, at least for the Big Three.
Yeah, Ohio's a little bit down this year too, so you're seeing that as far as attendance down there in Athens. But we got to go down there one more time, and I'm sure Ohio is really going to want to beat us because we have absolutely owned them over Todd Kowalczyk's career, it's funny how that works. We've lost 9 of our last 11 against Kent State, but we've won 10 in a row against Ohio. Like wacky match. Conference standings wise, I would say Toledo is pretty firmly gonna be in going to Cleveland. Miami's undefeated, and Akron has one loss to Miami, and they don't play each other again. So that's gonna be likely your 1-2 in the conference. Kent is 8-3. Ohio is 7-5. We are 6-5, but with that head-to-head against Ohio, and we still play them one more time. UMass is 6-6. Bowling Green's 5-6, and UB is 4-7. With Ball State, Northern, and all the Michigans coming up the rear, they'll all be fighting for that 8th spot here in a couple weeks. But this Toledo team's got a tough schedule remaining. Like I said, I think they're firmly going to be, going to Cleveland. It's just going to be if we can somehow reach for that 3rd seed or fall to the 6th, so we can get off of the Miami line. Because if we're a 4 or 5, that means semifinal time. It's going to be the Red Hawks there in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only benefit is knowing that we're not 1 seed and we're getting the early time slot.
Good point.
Yeah, true. And
we've talked about how much we hate that here for years and years.
The big thing that in my mind about getting into Cleveland is once we get there, are we going to be able to do anything? Like you said, if we're off the Miami line, yeah, we're probably going to be able to win a game or two and get in there. But given the past, I'm just going to throw this out there to you guys and your thoughts. Given the past performances, we don't make it to the NCAA tournament this year. Is TK on the hot seat?
Good question. Nate and Kyle, you guys want to go first?
I'll go. I don't think this year. I was kind of talking to Kyle pre-show. My expectations for this team with the turnover and everything like that, just make it and then just have fun. The last 3 seasons, we've won the MAC and we've had that number 1 seed. And I don't know, have we had the pressure and we just crack? I don't know. Go out there, just show me some good basketball in the tournament. And I don't think he's on the hot seat. I think college basketball, it's in a kind of a weird time right now with all the, poaching and just player turnover. And I was talking to Kyle, I'm having a little bit of a hard time like connecting with this team. I love watching Wilson and Blyden, and, they're exciting players, but how long Wilson's been around, but how long is Blyden going to be back? Do I need to worry about that? Like we brought up earlier, so I don't know. I don't think he should be on the hot seat. He's especially, I think consistency for a team right now. You look at, our football program and, we lost Candle and how many players just deported, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know if we'll see obviously next year what happens, but I don't think he should be on the hot seat. I think consistency is what we need still. And, he's been a consistently good basketball coach. Fortunately, only 1 team usually from the MAC gets in, but, I don't think he should be.
It's hard to compare basketball to football because there are a few positions in football where you lose a player and you're in rough shape. In basketball, you lose a player, you're in really rough shape sometimes. And I think that's a harder thing to manage at Toledo with basketball, with just players coming in and out like they have. I think Kowalczyk's around 600 for his winning percentage overall. Like it kind of, I think knowing, just like Nate said, knowing what we had going into this year, I've actually have been a little opposite of Nate. I think I've been more invested in this year's team than last year. And I didn't expect them to win it all. I just expected them to hopefully make Cleveland and maybe win a few games.
I would say I agree with Nate to an extent about, I don't think he's going to get fired unless we fire sale and lose like 5 of our next 6 games or something. But I feel like there's a situation where he kind of might pull a Jason Candle and take his talents elsewhere. He's been here for 16 years. He was at Green Bay for 8 before that. He still never made the tournament. Our fan base is growing, louder and louder as the weeks go. And his son is a senior in high school, and he's about to play for the Bradley Braves next year. So maybe he wants to watch his son. He's complained, for a couple of years now that his son plays on Tuesdays and Fridays, and Toledo's had a lot of Friday games this year. And every year, like he barely gets to watch his son play. So maybe he wants to watch him play in college, and he'll find a small job, somewhere near Bradley, or maybe takes an assistant job, or sits out a few years. I don't know. If he gets to the dance, I don't want him to leave. But just kind of the same old problems, same old issues with defense and lack of closing out games has reared its ugly head again. So I'm kind of in limbo right now.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you guys on everything you said, but I think his seat gets a little warmer after this season if they don't make the tournament. And I think there might be some pressure on him to make some changes within his coaching staff, just because the defense has been so horrible for so long.
I could see the university forcing that more than saying you're on the hot seat. Just like we need maybe a change in landscape with some staffing.
He's got a little hand warmer under his butt instead of a fire. But
I think Dan might be right too. It might be another Campbell situation where he moves on himself, and fans are split. Some did want him to, and some did. But I think it's easy to say he's been more vocal than Candle. Candle's really never vocal about the transfer portal and some of the struggles, but I think Kowalczyk has been vocal at times about a little bit of the disadvantages of being at Toledo compared to some of the other schools. Ray J was probably around the time that kind of hurt a little bit on that, but I personally don't want to see him leave yet. I want to see who he retains going into next season and see what that team does.
Well said.
Well, if Sam Lewis took $1 million to play at Virginia, 19-year-old Leroy Blyden's going to be getting seven figures. So I'm not sure Sonny Wilson can do anything he wants to keep Blyden with him. I think Sonny's probably going to take 1 year at a high major next year as well. And we're just going to be sitting here next year with our hands on our butts and seeing, who do we got this year to step out and take over Akron and Kent for the top couple teams in the league. And now Miami, who's gotten hot. But and anyways, transitioning into this week,
before we jump
Toledo plays Western Michigan Wednesday and Bowling Green Saturday. So those are two road games after our road game at JMU. It's going to be, Western we should handle Wednesday, but Bowling Green, that crowd's going to be crazy there. Get out and support them. And if you don't want to go to the Stroh Center, I do not blame you.
One thing I did want to bring up before we got into the women's team is it was kind of cool watching the JMU game and seeing Sam Lewis on the sidelines.
Yeah,
he was in the stands.
Yeah, very cool.
I think he had a game that day too, and hauled ass to the Toledo game.
Nice.
Well, he obviously didn't, leave on bad terms, and I think we kind of we didn't know how that roster, like in the summer when everybody went their own ways, we kind of didn't know how the locker room was, because obviously Javon Simmons went to an interconference team at Ohio, so to see Sam Lewis still supporting us is, and you understand. If you're given $1 million to be the eighth man at Virginia, it's a good move probably for your career, because I think next year he's going to be a starter for them, and Virginia is always a good tournament team.
Right.
Do we want to do score predictions for Bowling Green?
Sure.
All right.
Go ahead. You lead us off. Lead us off, Texas Rocket.
I'm going to go 81-77 Toledo.
I think we're going to pull it out, eh?
Yeah, I think we need to pull. I mean, looking at the remaining schedule, I think we need to go 5-2, no worse than 4-3.
I agree. I agree that we need to do that. We could probably still only win a couple, and I don't think the Michigans or Northern is going to catch us. But it's Valentine's Day. I don't want to be heartbroken, but because this team is so up and down, I'm going to predict a Bowling Green win. I'm going to say 69 for Valentine's Day to 78. Bowling Green beats us, but we hit 69 and get to take a little bit of solace in that, I guess. I don't know.
What an edible arrangement of a pick.
Oh boy.
I'm going to go with a UT borderline blowout. I see Toledo scoring at least 82 points, and I think BG is going to come in around 67, 68 points.
Whoa.
So I'll go with 82-68.
It's tough. They're like Dan said, they've been on the road for a little while by that point, and a little bit of a gauntlet of a road schedule. But I'm going to give Toledo the edge. I'm going to say 77-74.
Anything's possible. Bowling Green definitely has the chops. I think us and them are very close in talent this year. Like that Javante Campbell, that guard for them, he is an absolute stud. But we got a few guards of our own that are studs. We do match up similarly to each other. So I think pretty much anytime these two teams will play, it's a 50-50 toss-up. So I did see that Brian Blair is sending a bus of students to BG, and being in Savage Arena for when BG was here, Bowling Green brought like 150 total fans of our 6,800. They didn't bring their women brought 4 times as many as their men's fans did. So get out and show out, and let's make that Savage Arena 2, even though I'm not too fond of the arena.
Yeah, and basing my picks on just recent games that BG has played, I don't know much about Arkansas State, but they absolutely destroyed BG in the Sun Belt Challenge. I think they won by 26 or 27.
Yeah, the Wood County for us, they're rednecks, Down in Jonesboro, they're roughnecks. It's a tough crowd down there in Arkansas. Luckily for us, our football team's kind of dominated the Red Wolves, but Bowling Green has had no such luck as they lost to them in the whatever the GoDaddy Bowl was called last year too. They got pounded, so just a bad matchup for towns, Bowling Green and then Jonesboro for whatever reason.
Right.
I agree with Dan though. Everybody get out, wear blue, make that Home Depot look like Lowe's.
Hell yeah!
Exactly.
This is a Valspar nation over here. All right, now on to women's basketball. Since we last talked, Toledo lost at the George Gervin Game Above Center to Eastern Michigan, 76-71. Then we went on the road and beat Ohio by 9. And Ohio's near the top of the standings, so that was a great game for the ladies. They hung on at home to defeat preseason favorite Kent State. We knocked off Bowling Green by 10 last weekend. And then we went on the road and dropped a really weird one to Akron, who's at the bottom of the standings. That one was interesting, to say the least. And then we bounced back and defeated Southern Miss in part 2 of the Sun Belt Challenge at home, which was good to see. That Southern Miss team was very athletic. And, we opened up the year against Troy in part 1, and Troy absolutely demolished us by like 30. So to see that, we can still compete with the middle of the Sun Belt was good to see. Do you guys have any opinions on the last few weeks there for the ladies?
Yeah, I have a few for the Southern Miss game. My players of the game was Fed Robinson and Cole, but it was for the rebounds. Fed Robinson had 15 rebounds, Cole had 11. Both of them, Fed Robinson 20 points, Cole had 14, but just crashing the boards. And Pat, you were going over some of their rebound totals before we started the podcast.
Yeah, the Lady Rockets are leading the rebounding, and they are 3rd in the nation in rebounding. So that's right. I said 3rd in the nation. They are out rebounding their opponents 777 to 619. So it's a pretty good gap. It's an average. They're out rebounding the team by eight rebounds a game. So it's great to see them crashing the boards. I'd like to see a little bit more of consistent 3-point shooting and better perimeter defense. But all in all, it has been an up and down stretch, but I think you're going to get that anytime you've got a team that's just finally starting to gel together. a little bit, and we've dealt with a lot of issues with turnovers. They seem to rein that in one game and then let it slip a little bit next game. So it's up and down. And I think Ginny's doing a really tremendous job on getting this group molded and developed into a team at the right time of the year.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's hard to pick a player over the 6 games. I think 4 stood out to me overall as like consistent. But honestly, my player of the 6 games is Weaver off the bench.
Yeah.
Just you want to talk about 3-point shooting and needing that? Like she was pretty clutch over, I think 4 of the 6 games, and it's exactly what they needed.
And I think she brings a little bit of spark with her when she comes into the lineup. The team gets a little bit more fired up. Maybe it's just her energy. I'm not sure, but definitely my sixth sixth woman of the season so far.
Yeah, she's learned not to be scared to shoot now. I think over the first couple months of the year, we were just so poor at shooting that no one really wanted to fire it up. I mean, I think she missed 7 or 8 threes against Southern Miss, but she didn't pause. She got it, and she was open. She was throwing it up. That's what she needs to do because she's been capable of hitting 5 or 6 in a game. So
Yep.
I like that. Good shout out to Ella Weaver, and then Patricia Agnupa.
Yeah.
That shoulder surgery, that little hitch in her 3-pointer isn't the prettiest to watch, but when they start falling, they start falling. And she's the reason that we pulled away from Southern Miss this last weekend. She's had a 24 and a 25-point outing this year. So, it really does suck that Destiny Robinson couldn't be a part of this team this year because of her ACL and then Kendall Braden leaving the program. But, that would just kind of fill in some depth and give our 2 other guards and Kendall and Pat some breaks. But when they're on, they're on. So, outside of that Akron game, I would say I'm in a really good spot in the way I kind of feel about this team. But then, like you said, Pat, we just had that one game that was inexplicable. And I want to give a shout out to a girl off the bench for Akron who had, I think, 22 against us again, Naira Clark, the Rogers High School girl.
Yeah.
She had a similar output against us last year. She really comes to play. She's only a sophomore. I'm wondering if in the portal this year we'll go after her. I thought I heard something about her committing to Bowling Green last offseason, but then decommitting and going back to Akron. I'm not sure, but she's one hell of a player off the bench. I don't know why she comes off the bench for that Akron team that isn't very good, but good enough to beat us, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I actually know her mother. Her mother was a nurse for me when I was in the hospital recovering. But she said, when I was talking with her, would she have like to have gone to UT? And she said, yeah, but at the time, we only Trisha Cullop, yeah, she already had the 3 bigs, so there really wasn't room for her to be in the program at that point or whatever, which I kind of disagree with because they could have. She's younger than all those 3 bigs, and they could have developed her. But I think the want is possibly there to come back, and I think she shows that when she plays Toledo, the desire to come back here. And it's just a matter of she gets fired up to play Toledo. It's her home team, her hometown, and obviously her friends are all watching. So I was going to mention her as well for that game because she just came out on fire and we had no answer for her. And that was another game where our perimeter shooting or our perimeter defense wasn't great. And luckily they weren't nailing threes until the end of the game. But yeah, big shout out to Naria Clark.
Last year I think we were used to and expected the aggression that we saw from like Jessica Cook, Dan Garcia, Sammy, the mayor. And this year it was a little bit of a slow start, but I'm seeing like Fed Robinson, Anuba, Cole, just consistently being aggressive, just like we saw last year with a few of those players that we love and miss.
Yeah, I don't think aggression is the problem. I think there's mental lapses at times. I wouldn't say it's like forgetting plays, but it's a little chaotic at points, and we've seen that. And it has gotten better. The last time we talked about the basketball program, we were saying like, what's our goal for amount of turnovers, and it has gone down. But it's just frustrating to see it go from 14, 15 to then we'd still have another spike at like 23 turnovers in a game. And they seem to come in clumps. Like against Bowling Green, we were up, I think 23-6 early in that game. And then we only scored 5 buckets in the next 13 minutes of time. And there was just a ton of possessions where we didn't get shots off. So we just got to reel it in. I think this team is um, they're not the most talented, but the whole MAC is a little bit down. I think Ball State's gettable. We almost got them in Muncie, and we shot terribly. And Miami, Ohio, they're undefeated in the MAC as well in the women, which is insane. And they only beat us by like a couple possessions. Yeah. So nothing's out of the realm for this team if they can put it together. And we say have a game where Ella Weaver goes off again, because when she gets hot, that's an extra 15 points we're not getting on a game to game basis.
Just to put in perspective how big of an impact she's had, she's got the highest 3-point percentage of the team, almost 34%, and the second most makes on the team right now with 33 pointers made right now. So huge impact from her off the bench.
Absolutely. Dan, talking about the little bit of chaos we see and a little bit of being unnerved on the floor, do you think that comes back to the fact that there's no real identity with this team for a point guard? I mean, I know Carruthers is our point guard, but it doesn't seem like she's fully engrossed or engulfed in that role. And Dykstra does what she can do, but we've all seen, that's not a consistent performance time after time for her in the point guard role.
I think Carruthers has kind of struggled since when she got injured, and she had one good game against Kent State where she had 14 points. But I think she's still kind of struggling to kind of get back into maybe the rhythm of things.
Yeah, Casey was the third guard on the opponent's team last year would guard Kendall Carruthers, because the 1 and 2 had to guard Sammy and Goss. So now she is the number one target for defenses. And the fact that our starting point guards, whether Pat was going to be the starting point guard or not, but losing Braden and Destiny, now that Casey has to bring the ball up, she's just not getting the offense, set up for her. She has to be a distributor, which I just think takes her offense out of the game. So we're losing a lot of production there, and all our injuries happened so close to the beginning of the season. I think what our projected identity was totally flipped right before the season. And like Ginny said, Faith Fed Robinson only had 3 games or 3 practices before her first game, because she was coming off an injury as well. And we're seeing, Vanden Bosch is just starting to play a little bit. She hadn't played, the first 2 months of the season. She was injured a little bit. So it's just taking this team a lot of time to gel. The whole MAC had to reset, so it's not like we have, less minutes returning than other, teams. We saw Ball State reload. So it's not necessarily an excuse. I just think it's tough when the pieces aren't exactly what we imagined in, say, July, or how this team could come together. But Casey will be fine. She's just, if Pat can start to, stay hot and keep team's number one defenders on her, that'll get Casey open, and she can light it up from 3 if she just gets her chance. So I don't know. Point guard has been a problem. I think that the 5 spot has also been a little bit underwhelming. Miriam Fiala is in the top 5 in the league in field goal percentage, but and Evan Carrier's been decent off the bench behind her, but it's still not Nan and Cook and Hannah. So I'd like to see next year when they keep playing together how that changes, and Evilise Cole even playing the 5 sometimes, a little bit undersized at 6'2".
Right.
A couple more tiny little stats here just to kind of show you what this women's team is about. We're 4th in the MAC in margin of victory at 7.2 points per game. And our defense is number 2 in the MAC, only giving up less than 60 at 59.7. Did you guys see the article that Briggs wrote about Bowling Green's coach saying that our home floor is worth 10 points?
Did not.
No.
No.
I think Pat, you might have been on vacation, and obviously Nate, I don't think you're subscribed to the Blade all the way down there in Texas. But Bowling Green's coach said that this is the toughest environment to play at in the MAC, obviously, and he even said before the game, he said, "I'm coming into the second best fan base in the conference, to give Bowling Green a little bit of whatever." But he said that our home court is literally worth 10 points, and Bowling Green lost by 10. Coincidentally. But it is amazing how much better we are at home than away. I mean, this team goes from being 2 points from beating Gonzaga at home to losing to Akron on the road. And margin of victory at 7.2 points is the discrepancy between how bad we can beat teams at home and how bad we are on the road. Really,
9-2 at home, 3-7 on the road.
not good. And
I was hoping that trend would end with football this year, but apparently not.
No. We are 11th in the MAC in 3-point percentage at 27.6%. It's just team doesn't have a lot of shooters. We got about 2 of them, and we got to rely on them. So hopefully that improves near 30% as we close out the regular season here. You guys said best in the nation in rebounding, or one of the best in the nation in rebounding. We're 12th in turnover margin in the MAC at -2 per game. It's a bugaboo we've had all year. Got to fix that. We are number 1 in attendance, though, unlike the men, at 4,188 in conference play, and we are 2,000 more than the second place team in attendance. Do you guys know who that is?
I'm going to say Kent State.
Anybody else have a guess?
I said Ball State.
The answer is UMass.
Oh,
UMass is the only other team averaging over 2,000 a game. So we can talk shit about UMass all we want, but if they're bringing anything, they're bringing a little bit of juice to the women's side. And the Minutemen or Minute Women are having a decent year in their first year in the MAC.
They're a basketball town.
They are. Amherst, Massachusetts, basketball town. If you're ever... Never mind. Conference standings for the ladies. Miami's undefeated. Ball State's right behind them. UMass is 8-2. CMU is 8-3. So that's another basketball program I would say that has slipped lately since Sue Guerva or whatever her name was has been gone, but they're on their way back up. Ohio is 7-4. Like I mentioned, we just defeated them, and we get them again this week. We're 6-4. Kent State's 5-6. They started off 0-5 or 0-4, and they've started to win a little bit. And Bowling Green's 4-7 before the Eastern, the Western, Akron, Northern, and Bowling Green come up the rear, and Buffalo come up the rear. So again, I think we're safe. I think we're gonna make Cleveland. You just gotta tighten up some things.
agreed.
Wednesday, the Rockets host Ohio, and we host Eastern Michigan on Saturday. Hopefully, we will give back the Eagles what they gave to us a few weeks ago up there in Ypsi. That game is at 2:00 Saturday. And also, just an interesting tidbit that the men and women both play on Wednesday this week. So you're going to have to get either a split screen ESPN Plus or have the radio on for the other. They're giving our men an extra day because of travel going down south to the Sun Belt Challenge.
Women play Tuesday.
We do play Tuesday. Okay. Well, there you go. We mixed it up this week. Pretty smart to do that depending on who was on the road there. So Lady Rockets Tuesday, 7:00 against Ohio at home. Big game.
Show up, wear blue and gold, and be loud.
Yes, sir. Anything else you guys want to add?
Yeah, I think next episode, we've been teasing this for a couple of weeks now, but we will do an in-depth review on the recruiting class for football and the transfers coming in. Everything's finalized and ready to go for next year. So maybe talk about the coaching staff a little bit more. They put out some nice graphics. Toledo did on X of their entire staff and support staff, so kind of get some faces to the names before the season. But yeah, we'll have that in-depth episode coming up, and just before the draft here, where McNeil Warren's going first round, right?
I just saw the Lions a mock draft having him at like 23rd overall or something. So,
oh, after they, well, we heard a little bit about Kirby Joseph in the season about his knee being pretty much toast. They definitely need a safety, so that would be a nice addition.
it really would.
I like to see green and gold.
Pat, I've only seen him going to the Bears, the Lions, and the Vikings, so it's not looking good
everybody
for us.
but us.
Oh.
All right, let's put a midnight blue bow on this bitch and call it a night.
Oh, yeah.
All right, on behalf of the boys on the screen here, I'm Kyle W. and appreciate you guys listening and following us. One last thing, TOL.
EDO.
Ooh.